The space station hung in the darkness like a giant metal flower. Its silver arms reached out from the center, spinning slowly around the bright gas giant below. Ships from dozens of worlds floated near the docking bays. Some looked like sharp needles made of black metal. Others were round and covered in glowing lights. A few were so strange that most people could not even guess what they were. Jake Morrison walked down the long hallway toward the big meeting room. His shoes made soft sounds on the smooth floor. He wore a simple black suit with a white shirt and dark tie. No fancy decorations, no shiny medals, no weapons hanging from his belt. Just a normal man in normal clothes. Other beings filled the hallway around him. Tall creatures with 4 arms and blue skin walked past. Small furry things with big eyes scurried between the legs of larger beings. A group of rock-like aliens moved slowly, their stone feet grinding against the floor. All of them wore special clothes that showed their rank and power. Bright robes, shining armor, jeweled headbands. Golden chains. Jake looked plain next to all of them. Like a gray mouse in a room full of peacocks, the meeting room was huge. The ceiling went up so high that Jake had to tilt his head back to see. The top rows of seats formed circles around a raised platform in the center. The most important delegates sat in the front row. Lesser beings sat further back. Jake found his seat in the 3rd row and sat down quietly. The platform in the center held 2 massive chairs. Both were made of dark metal and covered in sharp spikes. They looked more like thrones for war gods than seats for diplomats. A door opened at the back of the room. Heavy footsteps echoed through the space. Warlord Vextar entered first. He was enormous. Nearly 8 feet tall and almost as wide. His body was covered in bio-armor that looked like it had grown from his skin. The armor was dark green with black lines running through it. Red lights blinked along the edges. His face was hidden behind a mask that looked like a skull. 4 glowing eyes stared out from the mask. His arms were so thick they looked like tree trunks. Behind him came his son, Prince Zalkar. The prince was smaller than his father, but still much bigger than most beings in the room. His armor was newer and shinier, silver with blue highlights. His mask showed his face, which was pale and sharp. His eyes were bright yellow and seemed to find everything funny. Father and son took their seats on the platform. The warlord's chair creaked under his weight. The prince sat with one leg thrown over the arm of his chair like he was bored already. "We are here," the warlord's voice boomed through speakers in his armor, "because the weak species of this galaxy think they can tell the Korthic Empire what to do. They cry about their little worlds. They whine about their trade routes. They forget that the strong take what they want. The weak give what they must." Many delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked angry, others looked scared. A few nodded in agreement. Prince Zalkar's eyes swept across the room. They stopped when they saw Jake. The prince's mouth curved into a nasty smile. His teeth were sharp and white. "Father," the prince said, his voice carrying easily through the room, "look at the human delegate." "Is this some kind of joke?" All eyes turned to Jake. He sat calmly in his chair, hands folded in his lap. He did not seem bothered by the attention. "Where is his armor?" the prince continued. "Where are his weapons, his guards, his displays of power?" The prince laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "He looks like a servant who got lost on his way to clean the floors." Some delegates laughed with him. Others looked uncomfortable. A few species that were friends with humans looked worried. "Perhaps," the warlord said, his 4 eyes studying Jake, "the humans have no real warriors left. Perhaps they send their weakest ones to speak because they know their words mean nothing. Or maybe," the prince added, standing up from his chair, "they are just too weak to know better. I have heard that humans break easily. They have soft skin and weak bones. No natural weapons. No thick hide, no poison glands," he pointed at Jake. "This one looks like he would cry if I spoke too loudly." The room fell silent. Even the small sounds of breathing and shifting seemed to stop. Jake stood up slowly. His movements were smooth and controlled. When he was fully standing, he looked small compared to the aliens around him. But something in the way he moved made people pay attention. "Prince Zalkar," Jake said. His voice was not loud, but it carried clearly through the room. "I appreciate your concern for my well-being, but I think there might be something you should know about human diplomatic protocol." The prince's laugh was even louder now. "Protocol? What protocol could soft creatures like you possibly have?" "When humanity sends someone to negotiate," Jake said calmly, "we don't send our weakest people. We send someone we trust to speak for our entire species." "And what," the prince asked, his voice dripping with fake sweetness, "makes you think your words matter here, little human?" Jake's face stayed calm. His eyes met the prince's yellow ones without fear. "Because, Your Highness, I'm not here to threaten you." The prince waited for more. When Jake didn't continue, he leaned forward. "Then why are you here?" "I'm here," Jake said quietly, "to warn you." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Conversation stopped. Delegates turned to stare. Even the warlord's glowing eyes seemed to focus more intently on the human. "Prince." Zalkar's mouth opened, then closed. For a moment he seemed confused, then his anger returned, twice as strong as before. "Warn us?" His voice rose to a shout. "A creature with no claws, no fangs, no armor, no weapons thinks he can warn the mighty Korthuk Empire?" He turned to the other delegates. "Do you hear this? Do you see how far this pathetic species has fallen into madness?" Jake reached into his jacket pocket. Several security guards moved toward him, but he pulled out only a small device. A data pad. He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the center of the room. The image showed 3 star systems. Planets orbited around bright suns. Green lines connected the worlds, showing trade routes. Red zones marked dangerous areas. Numbers and symbols gave details about populations and resources. "The Helix Nebula systems?" Jake said, his voice still calm and professional. "You claimed them last week. 17 inhabited worlds. Total population of 2.8 billion sentient beings. These worlds have been under the protection of the Terran Federation for 40 years. The Warlord leaned forward in his chair. "The Korthuk Empire recognizes no such protection. We take what we can hold. This is the way of the strong." "I understand your position," Jake replied. "But I'm required by law to tell you something. If Korthuk forces are not withdrawn from these systems within 72 hours, the Terran Federation will consider this an act of war." The silence that followed was complete. Not even the hum of the station's life support systems could be heard. Then Prince Zalkar began to laugh. Prince Zalkar's laughter filled the room like the sound of breaking metal. His whole body shook with it. The sound bounced off the walls and came back even louder. Other delegates looked around nervously. Some moved away from the prince as if his laughter might hurt them. "Did you hear that, father?" The prince gasped between laughs. "The little human threatens us with war." "War!" He pointed at Jake with one clawed finger. "Look at him. He has no muscles, no scars, no weapons. And he thinks he can threaten the Korthuk Empire." The warlord's 4 eyes studied Jake more carefully now. "Tell me, human diplomat, how many ships does your federation have? How many soldiers? How many worlds do you control?" Jake looked down at his datapad. He pressed a few buttons and read from the screen. "The Terran Federation currently has active colonies on 847 worlds across 312 star systems. Our fleet has about 12,000 active ships of different types. We have roughly 2.3 million people serving in our military forces." Prince Zalkar stopped. Laughing, the room went quiet again. The prince's yellow eyes narrowed. "You lie." "No, Your Highness. These numbers are correct." A new voice spoke from across the room. "The human speaks truth." The speaker was Delegate Morthak from the Zephyrian Collective. She was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. Her people were known for gathering information about other species. Our records show the same numbers. We thought they were lies too, but our spies have confirmed them. Prince Zalkar's face turned red under his pale skin. "Impossible." No species could have so many ships and soldiers without everyone knowing. Everyone does know, Jake said quietly. Everyone just hasn't been paying attention. The prince's breathing got faster. The bio-armor around his chest began to glow brighter as it worked harder to keep up with his body's needs. You're trying to trick us. Humans are weak. Everyone knows this. We are not the strongest species, Jake agreed. We are not the fastest. We are not the smartest. But we are very good at one thing. What thing? The Warlord demanded. We are very good at preparing for problems before they happen. Jake pressed another button on his datapad. The hologram above the room changed. Now it showed a map of the local area of space. Hundreds of small dots appeared on the map. Each dot was marked with a different color. These are Federation monitoring stations, Jake explained. We have them in every star system within 200 light-years of Earth. They watch for pirates, natural disasters, and military movements. More dots appeared on the map. These were larger and colored red. These are our patrol ships. They move between systems and respond to problems. If pirates attack a trade ship, our patrols are usually there within 6 hours. Even more dots appeared. These were blue and very large. These are our defense fleets. Every human world has at least 20 ships. Protecting it, important worlds have more. The map was now filled with thousands of colored dots. The delegates stared at it in shock. Some began using their own devices to check the information. How long have you been watching us? Prince Salkar asked. His voice was much quieter now. We have been watching everyone for about 50 years. Jake replied, It's not personal. We watch all species that have space travel. We learned early that it's better to know about problems before they reach our worlds. The prince's bio-armor began making small beeping sounds. Warning lights flickered on his chest plate. His breathing was getting even faster. You said you have 12,000 ships, the Warlord said slowly. How many ships would you send to fight us? Jake looked at his datapad again. For a full war against the Korthic Empire, our military planners estimate we would need about 4,000 ships. Maybe 5,000 if you have allies who join the fight. Only 4,000? The prince's voice cracked. Against our entire empire? Yes, but I should explain something about those numbers. Jake's voice stayed calm and professional. The 12,000 ships I mentioned earlier? Those are just our active patrol fleets. The ones that are out in space right now, doing their regular jobs. The beeping from the prince's armor got louder. His hands started shaking. We also have reserve fleets, Jake continued. Ships that stay near our worlds in case of emergencies. We have construction fleets that build new ships and stations. We have exploration fleets that look for new worlds. And we have what we call deep space fleets. Deep space fleets? Delegate Morthic asked. Ships that patrol the empty areas between star systems. They watch for threats that might be coming from far away. They also make sure no one builds secret bases in areas where they shouldn't. Jake pressed his datapad again. The hologram zoomed out to show a much larger area of space. Now there were tens of thousands of dots on the map. So many that they looked like clouds of colored light. In total, Jake said, the Terran Federation operates about 73,000 ships. We build roughly 200 new ships every month. Every human world has orbital defense platforms. Every human ship carries enough weapons to fight a small war by itself. Prince. Zalkar made a choking sound. His armor's warning lights turned from yellow to red. You're lying, he whispered. You have to be lying. I have no reason to lie, Your Highness. You asked for numbers, I gave you numbers. The prince tried to stand up but fell back into his chair. His face was now very pale. Sweat ran down his forehead. But you look so weak. You have no weapons, no armor, no guards. That's because I don't need them, Jake said gently. When you are strong enough, you don't need to show your strength to everyone you meet. The prince's breathing became very fast and shallow. His hands clutched at his chest. Father, he gasped. Father, I don't feel good. Warlord Vextar looked at his son with growing concern. What is wrong with you? I think, Jake said, stepping forward with concern in his voice, the prince is having what humans call a panic attack. Learning that you badly misjudged a threat can be very stressful for some species. The prince's eyes rolled back in his head. His body started shaking all over. The bio-armor's alarms became very loud. Medical emergency, Jake called out loudly. Prince Zalkar needs help. But the prince's condition was getting worse very quickly. And Jake realized that sometimes the truth could be more dangerous than any weapon. Jake moved quickly toward the platform where Prince Zalkar was shaking in his chair. The prince's bio-armor was now flashing red lights all over his body. The beeping had become one long, high-pitched whine. Other delegates started backing away from the platform, afraid of what might happen next. Stay calm, Your Highness, Jake said as he climbed the steps to the platform. You're having a stress reaction. Your body is trying to protect you, but it's working too hard. The prince tried to speak, but only strange gasping sounds came out. His yellow eyes were wide with fear and confusion. His clawed hands grabbed at Jake's arm. Father, the prince whispered, make it stop. Make the fear stop. Warlord Vextar stood up from his massive chair. For the first time since entering the room, he looked uncertain. What is happening to my son? His bio-armor is designed to help him in battle, Jake explained, kneeling beside the prince's chair. But right now, his body thinks he's in terrible danger. The armor is pumping chemicals into his system to make him stronger and faster. But since there's no physical threat to fight, the chemicals are just making him sick. Jake pulled out a small device from his jacket. It looked like a medical scanner. He ran it over the prince's body, and it beeped softly as it gathered information. His heart rate is dangerously high, Jake said. His blood pressure is through the roof. If we don't calm him down soon, his enhanced cardiovascular system might fail completely. You did this to him, the warlord roared. You poisoned him with your lies. I didn't lie to him, Jake said calmly, still working with his scanner. I told him the truth. Sometimes the truth is harder to handle than people expect. The prince's shaking was getting worse. His bio-armor began making new sounds like grinding metal and hissing steam. Systems that were meant to help him were now fighting against each other. Please, the prince gasped. Tell me it's not true. Tell me humans are weak. Tell me you only have a few ships. Tell me you can't hurt us. Jake looked into the prince's frightened eyes. I can't tell you that, Your Highness. It wouldn't be true. Then we're all going to die, the prince whispered. My father will attack you, and you'll destroy us all. No, Jake said firmly. That's not going to happen. How do you know? Because your father is smarter than you think he is. And because humans don't actually want to fight you. The warlord's 4 eyes focused on Jake. Explain. Jake kept his scanner running over the prince while he talked. The Korthic Empire is strong. Your people are brave warriors. You've conquered many worlds and defeated many enemies. But you've been fighting species that were roughly equal to you in strength. So humans are not equal to you. We are much stronger. If we wanted to conquer your empire, we would have done it already. The fact that we haven't should tell you something about what we really want. The prince's breathing slowed down just a little. What do you want? We want to trade with you. We want to learn from you. We want to share knowledge and technology. We want to be friends, not enemies. But you could destroy us, the warlord said, double quotes. Yes, but we don't want to. Destroying other species is wasteful, it's cruel, and it's unnecessary. Jake's scanner beeped again. The prince's vital signs were still dangerous, but they were no longer getting worse. Your Highness, Jake said gently, I need to tell you something else. Something that might help you understand why you're so scared right now. The prince nodded weakly. The 2.3 million people I mentioned earlier? The ones serving in our military forces, they're not our army. The prince's eyes widened again. What? There are diplomatic corps? Every person who represents humanity in space has to serve in the military first. Most of us have been in combat. We know what war is like. You're a soldier? I was. I served on a warship called the New York for 8 years. We fought pirates and raiders in the outer systems. I've seen what happens when diplomacy fails. The prince's bio-armor began to calm down. The red lights faded to yellow, then to green. His breathing became more normal. If you're all soldiers, the prince asked, then where is your real army? Our real army? Jake smiled for the first time since entering the room. They're the ones who stayed home to protect our worlds. About 50 million active soldiers. Another 200 million in reserves. And about 800 million civilians who have military training. The prince closed his eyes. How many humans are there? About 2.2 billion spread across our 847 worlds. And they can all fight? Not all. The very young and very old don't serve. But most adults have at least basic military training. It's part of our education system. The Warlord sat back down in his chair. It groaned under his weight. You're telling me that every human colony is essentially a military base? Every human colony can defend itself, yes. We learned early that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. We decided to be ready for anything. The prince opened his eyes and looked at Jake. Why are you telling us this? Why not let us attack you and learn the hard way? Because, Jake said, good diplomats try to prevent wars, not start them. And because your father seems like a reasonable leader who can learn from new information? The Warlord's 4 eyes studied Jake for a long moment. You really don't want to fight us? No, we don't. War is expensive. It's destructive. It makes everyone poorer and more miserable. We'd much rather find a peaceful solution. But if we did attack your worlds? Jake's expression became serious. Then we would defend them, and we would win. And afterward, we would still offer to help you rebuild and become our friends. The prince tried to sit up in his chair. His bio-armor helped him, but he was still very weak. I don't understand. If you win, why would you help us? Because that's what civilized people do, Jake said simply. We help each other. We don't kick people when they're down. We don't make enemies when we could make friends instead. The room was very quiet now. All the delegates were listening carefully. Many of them were thinking about what Jake had said. Some were probably wondering if their own species would be as generous after winning a war. What happens now? The Warlord asked. Now, Jake said, you decide what kind of leader you want to be. The kind who learns from new information, or the kind who makes the same mistakes over and over again. The prince's bio-armor beeped softly. His vital signs were almost normal now, but his eyes still showed the fear of someone who had looked into an abyss and seen how deep it really was. Prince Zalkar sat in his chair, still shaking but no longer in immediate danger. His bio-armor had stopped flashing red warnings, but yellow caution lights still blinked slowly across his chest. Jake remained close to the prince, his medical scanner still in hand, watching the readings carefully. Warlord Vextar looked around the room at all the other delegates. Many of them were using their own devices to check Jake's claims about human military strength. The looks on their faces told the Warlord that the human was not lying. Human diplomat, the Warlord said slowly. You mentioned that those 73,000 ships could be used against my empire, but you also said humans prefer peace. How do I know you won't attack us anyway? Jake put his scanner away and stood up. Because we've had the ability to attack you for 40 years and we haven't done it yet. What do you mean? The Terran Federation has been watching the Korthic Empire since you first started expanding into this sector. We've seen every battle you've fought, every world you've conquered, every species you've defeated. The prince's voice was weak but clearer now. You've been spying on us for 40 years? Not spying, Jake corrected. Monitoring? There's a difference. Spies try to steal secrets or cause trouble. We just watch to make sure you don't threaten our allies or our trade routes. And what did you see? The Warlord asked. We saw a strong warrior culture that values honor in battle. We saw you treating defeated enemies with respect. We saw you protecting civilians during your conquests. We saw you building good governments on the worlds you took. The prince looked surprised. You approve of our conquests? We don't. Approve of conquest in general, Jake said. But we recognize that some species expand through war while others expand through trade. As long as you follow certain rules, we don't interfere. What rules? Jake pulled out his datapad again. No genocide. No slavery, no torture, no attacking civilian populations. No destroying entire worlds. The Korthic Empire has followed these rules in most of your wars. Most, the warlord's voice, carried a warning tone. There were 3 incidents where your forces went too far. The massacre on Rigel 7, the slave markets on Kepler Station, the orbital bombardment of New Geneva. The warlord's 4 eyes blazed with anger. Those were not official actions, rogue commanders acting without orders. We know, Jake said calmly. We also know you executed those commanders when you found out what they had done. That's why we didn't intervene. You could have stopped those atrocities, the prince said quietly. If you're as strong as you claim, you could have saved those people. Jake's expression became sad. Yes, we could have. And that decision haunts many of us. But if we had intervened, it would have started a war. A war that would have killed millions more people than those 3 incidents combined. So you let those people die to prevent a larger war? Yes, and we've had to live with that choice every day since. The room fell silent. Many delegates looked uncomfortable. The weight of such terrible decisions was something most of them had never considered. But those incidents are why we're here now, Jake continued. Why I'm warning you instead of just watching. The worlds you're threatening in the Helix Nebula are different. How are they different? The warlord demanded. They're human colonies. The prince's bioarmor started beeping again, but softer this time. You mean humans live on those worlds? 17. Worlds, 12 million human colonists. Plus about 2.7 billion non-human civilians under our protection. Protection? The warlord leaned forward. What kind of protection? Jake pressed a button on his datapad. The hologram above the room changed to show the 3 star systems in dispute. But now there were new markers on the display, lots of them. Defense. Platforms around every planet, Jake explained. Patrol ships in every system, early warning networks, emergency shelters for civilians, and response fleets ready to jump in if there's trouble. More markers appeared on the hologram. These were much larger and colored bright red. These are our fortress stations. 1 in each system. They're not just defensive platforms. They're complete military bases with shipyards, repair facilities, and garrison forces. The warlord stared at the display. How many ships are stationed there? About 2,000 in total, plus the fortress stations themselves, which are armed like battleships. And, if we attack those systems, then those 2,000 ships will fight you. When they send out a distress call, another 5,000 ships will arrive within 12 hours. If those aren't enough, we'll keep sending more until the threat is eliminated. Prince Zalkar closed his eyes. How long would it take you to destroy our entire empire? Jake thought for a moment. If we used our full military power? About 6 months, maybe less. And how long to rebuild it afterward? Rebuild it? You said you would help us rebuild after defeating us. Oh, Jake smiled slightly. About 10 years to get your infrastructure back to current levels. Maybe 15. Years to get your technology up to Federation standards. 20 years to get your people the same quality of life as human colonists. The prince opened his eyes and stared at Jake. You would really do that? Help us become as advanced as you are? Of course. What would be the point of keeping you weak? Weak neighbors make poor trading partners. And poor trading partners don't buy much from you. The warlord made a sound that might have been laughter. You would help us become strong enough to threaten you again? By the time you were strong enough to threaten us, we would be even stronger. Human technology advances very quickly. In 20 years, we'll probably have twice as many ships as we do now. But why take the risk? Because strong friends are better than weak enemies. Because helping others makes us better people. And because the galaxy is a big place with room for everyone, the prince tried to stand up. His bio-armor helped him, but his legs were still shaky. I don't understand humans at all. Most species don't, at first, Jake said kindly. We do things differently than most others. But once you get used to us, we're not so bad. You're terrifying, the prince said honestly. You could destroy us all and you act like it's no big deal. It's not that it's no big deal, Jake corrected. It's that having the power to destroy someone doesn't mean you should use it. The strongest person in a room is often the one who has the least need to prove their strength. The warlord stood up slowly. His massive frame cast long shadows across the platform. What happens if we withdraw from the helix systems? Then nothing happens. You go back to your empire. We go back to our colonies. Everyone lives in peace. And if we don't withdraw? Jake's expression became serious again. Then, in 72 hours, those 2,000 defense ships will ask you to leave. If you refuse, they'll make you leave. And after that? After that, we hope you'll be ready to talk about peace. Prince Zalkar took a few shaky steps forward, his bio-armor supporting his weight. The yellow warning lights on his chest had finally stopped blinking. His breathing was normal again, but his face was still very pale. He looked at Jake with an expression that mixed fear, respect, and confusion. Ambassador Morrison, the prince said quietly, I owe you an apology. No, you don't, Jake replied. You spoke from what you believed to be true. When you learned new information, you changed your mind. That's what intelligent people do, but I mocked you. I called you weak. I said terrible things about your people. Jake smiled. Your Highness, if I got upset every time someone underestimated humans, I would never have time to do my actual job. The prince almost smiled back. Does it happen often? More often than you might think. Most species judge strength by what they can see. Humans learned long ago that the most dangerous threats are usually the ones you can't see until it's too late. Warlord. Vextar walked over to stand beside his son. Up close, Jake could see that the warlord was old. His bio-armor was covered in scars from many battles. His 4 eyes showed the wisdom that comes from making hard choices for many years. Human Diplomat, the warlord said. My son has learned a valuable lesson today. But I must ask you something. Directly, if I order my fleets to withdraw from the helix systems, what guarantee do I have that humans won't attack us anyway? You have my word, Jake said simply. The word of one diplomat? The word of the Terran Federation. I speak for my entire government. The warlord studied Jake's face for a long moment. And if someday the Korthek Empire grows strong enough to challenge human power, what then? Then we would be honored to have such worthy opponents, Jake replied. Competition makes everyone stronger. If you could challenge us, it would mean both our species had grown beyond what we are today. You would not try to stop us from becoming stronger? Why would we? Strong neighbors make strong allies. And if you did become our enemies instead of our friends, at least it would be an honest fight between equals. Prince Zalkar looked around the room at all the other delegates. Many of them were still staring at their devices, reading reports about human military strength. Their faces showed shock, fear, and in some cases hope. Father, the prince said softly, I think we should listen to Ambassador Morrison. The warlord's 4 eyes turned to his son. You believe we should withdraw? I believe we should survive. And I believe this human when he says they want to be our friends. Why do you believe him? The prince gestured toward Jake. Because he could have let me die. When my bio-armor was failing, he could have just stood there and watched. Instead, he helped me. He saved my life. That was just basic medical aid, Jake said. No, the prince replied firmly. That was kindness. You showed mercy to someone who had insulted you and your people. That tells me more about human character than all your ships and weapons. The warlord was quiet for a long time. The entire room waited for his decision. Finally, he activated a communication device on his armor. Fleet Commander Thalrix, the warlord's voice boomed through the device. Yes, my lord, came the reply. Order all Korthek forces to withdraw from the Helix Nebula systems immediately. Full withdrawal within 24 hours. My lord? Are we under attack? No, Commander. We are choosing wisdom over pride. Withdraw all forces and return to Empire space. It will be done, my lord. The Warlord turned off the device and looked at Jake. It is done. My fleets will withdraw. Jake bowed slightly. Thank you, Warlord Vextar. You have chosen the path of a true leader. And what happens now? Now we begin the process of building a real relationship between our peoples. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, technology sharing. The things that make both sides stronger and richer. The prince stepped forward. Ambassador Morrison, would it be possible for me to visit human space? I would like to learn more about your people. I'm sure that can be arranged, Jake said. In fact, I think you would make an excellent ambassador yourself someday. Me, an ambassador? You've learned something today that many leaders never learn. You've learned that true strength comes from knowing when not to use your power. The prince looked thoughtful. What do you mean? Your father had the power to order an attack on human colonies. He chose not to use that power. You had the power to continue mocking me even after learning the truth. You chose not to use that power either. That's what separates leaders from bullies. Delegate Morthix stood up from her seat. Ambassador Morrison, the Zephyrian Collective, would also like to discuss closer ties with the Terran Federation. Other delegates began standing as well. Soon, half the room was asking about trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. Jake smiled and pulled out his datapad. I'll be happy to schedule meetings with all of you. But first, let me make something clear to everyone. The room fell silent again. The Terran Federation is not interested in ruling the galaxy. We're not interested in forcing our way of life on others. We're interested in trade, friendship, and mutual prosperity. We want to help everyone become the best version of themselves. And if someone refuses your friendship, asked a delegate from the back of the room, then we respect their choice and leave them alone. Friendship cannot be forced. It can only be offered. Prince Zelkar walked over to Jake and extended his clawed hand. Ambassador Morrison, I would be honored to call you friend. Jake shook the prince's hand carefully. The honor is mine, Your Highness. The Warlord watched this exchange with something that might have been pride. My son, you have grown wiser today than in all your previous years combined? I had a good teacher, the prince replied. Looking at Jake as the delegates began to file out of the room, making plans for future meetings and negotiations, Jake gathered his things. The crisis was over, war had been avoided. And maybe, just maybe, a new friendship had been born. The prince stopped beside Jake as he reached the door. Ambassador, can I ask you one more question? Of course. When you said I had learned something fatal about humans, what did you mean? Jake thought for a moment. You learned that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't our weapons or our ships. It's that we remember who our friends are, and we never forget who helped us when it mattered. The prince smiled for the first time since entering the room. I think I understand now. What do you understand? Why it was fatal to mock you. Not because you would have killed me, but because I almost missed the chance to have humans as friends instead of enemies. Jake nodded. That's exactly right. Your Highness, that's exactly right.